we can be in our heads so much, but when you encounter real humanity and somebody in need, and you realize very quickly that it's more than just somebody in need, that it's a person, that it's a friend, and there's a whole world that begins to open up.
My name is Sally Roberts, and my husband.
I'm Tom Roberts.
And our experience with working with immigrants or refugees began in the late 70s. We lived in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and there was a notice in the parish bulletin, the church where we were members, and they were looking for families who would sponsor refugees from Vietnam. And so originally the request was to help settle a family, which meant help find a place for them to live, help get them clothing when they arrived, and then assist with finding jobs and getting them settled into the community. And so we did that for a family of 10 people. So the initial experience that we had led us to consider the next request we saw in the bulletin, which was to have brothers actually stay with you in your home.
And I remember very clearly saying, living in our home, we had 3 little children, and I was not keen about this at all. And Sally's response was, they need a house and a place to stay. They don't have one, we do. And that was the end of the discussion.
They were very kind to our children, very respectful of our children, but willing to lend a hand in any way while they were with us.
And then we said yes to it. The social agency said, well, you had a good experience with this, how about another set? And they're the ones who we've remained in contact with for decades. Their father came to them because he was, the older one was taking college entrance exams. So he was 17 at the time in Vietnam. And the father just came to him one day because he was also on the list for draft into the Army, and just said, you're leaving in 2 days, I think it was. And they put him and the younger brother, who was 14 at the time, I think, 13 or 14,
13.
On a boat with, I think it was around 35, 40 other people. And these boats were tiny. He showed us an example of one when we were at the beach one time, couldn't believe it. And they spent 40-some days on the sea. It
was offered to come to the U.S., to Pennsylvania, and that meant nothing to them. They did hear that it was cold there, which was a little worrisome, but they decided that they didn't have any other options, and that there was a sponsor. There were sponsors there for them. And so they arrived with the clothes on their back, their dictionaries, and we brought them home.
I was always fearful of who are these people and what are they like, but that fear dissipated pretty quickly because they were just such gentle and wonderful folks.
Yeah, there were concerns because our children were young, and they were 2 boys, and our oldest, who was 7 or 8 at the time, was a girl. And bringing these teenage boys into a house, yes, there were concerns. I never for a minute felt uncomfortable about our kids' safety. It was very, very clear that the older brother was in charge of his younger brother. I remember when they were saying that their father took them and turned them over to these people and put them on a boat. And I said, I can't understand what that was like for your parents. As a parent, I can't understand that. And the older brother said, because you don't understand no freedom. And I remember thinking, you're right. I don't understand that.
What it did was open up the world for all of us and realize that there's a great deal of need out there, and you can either be swamped by it, as I was, or you can have somebody say, we got a house and this is what we do, this is what we can do. We had talked a lot about community as an early married couple, and this popped up and we said, well, we can provide. Okay. Sally said that mostly. But for me, it really opened up that whole sense of generosity and what it meant to just do what you can where you are. And it was and then to have this lifelong friendship with these two guys, and then their families and extended families. It's really just marvelous.
My name is Teresa. I'm from Mexico. I was brought into the United States by my father in 1985. I was 11. I went to elementary, middle school, and high school. My husband and I got married in 1993 after my high school graduation. He was a construction worker since he was 15 years old, and he liked the construction very much. And when we got married, he had a dream about having or owning his own business, and he was working for someone else though. At a job site he was working at, there was a project manager named Mike, which encouraged him to have his own business. And he actually told my husband that he would be the one connecting with the construction company, so he would get some of the projects separate from the company he was working for. He was very helpful for us, and he helped our dreams come true here in the United States of having a business of our own. We started the business out of our apartment complex with 2 employees, my husband and his brother, 1 vehicle. And currently, right now, we have 35 employees. We have an office building. We have many vehicles and much more equipment than before. Mr. Mike saw how hard worker my husband was and how the good quality of his work, and he encouraged him of having his own business, and gave him the support. At the beginning it was kind of strange. We never expected this support from someone, but it was also received very happily from us.
My name is Adriana Fernandez. 16 years ago, I decided to come back to the U.S. first to learn English. I was American, but I could communicate in English. And so I came with my family, and then I think I grew up with this kind of mentality that our house was a kind of, as well as our hearts, should be a welcoming place for everybody.
My name is Maria Regina. I'm from Fortaleza in Brazil. I came here while I was on vacation, but I was thinking about staying here in the US, and I decided to stay because of Adriana. Probably I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for her. We didn't know Adriana at all. We had a common friend, and this person was supposed to host us, but there was no space in her house, and so she asked Adriana if she could host us.
We didn't know who we would meet, but we were surprised because of how welcoming she was, with a big hug and a big smile.
I think it's really important to know that someone will be waiting for you, because everything will be new and strange.
I wish that everyone could have that kind of experience before coming to another country.
I think the most important thing is that we are all a big family. Even if I don't know you that much, but I can tell that when you have a chance to receive people that sometimes we never met before, you can see yourself in big people. I think I'm a better person after having so many people around me.
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Zett. I have a few immigrant stories that became friends of mine. The first one was Francisca Uzawane. She was from Nigeria, and I met her at our church. We have coffee and donuts after church, and she was sitting by herself at a table, so I went up and introduced myself, and we became very good friends. She had a very hard life in Nigeria, and when she came here, she had a relative who took advantage of her for 4 years and basically used her as a maid. And she finally ran away from that situation, and she ended up getting a first job in a local hotel where the manager stole her tips, and then she got a job in Mayo Clinic. She was a joyful person. She loved to dance. She was a lot of fun. And unfortunately, in the fall of 2014, she found out she had diabetes. And then in January of 2015, she was diagnosed with advanced pancreatic cancer. She went through 3 years of chemotherapy. And during that time, I would accompany her just because I didn't want her to be alone. I don't think I'd want to go through those treatments by myself. And that was when she told me more about her background, the difficult life she had in Nigeria. So I got to hear a lot more about her life as we would sit for an hour and a half, 2 hours for these treatments. She went through the cancer treatments for 3 years. She hoped to go back to Nigeria this past spring, but she became more ill. She went into hospice on June 23rd, and she died on August 23rd of this year. I miss her, and I think of her often. Then I met a family on Thanksgiving Day. Let's see, it was 9 years ago at the Church of St. John the Evangelist in Rochester. And these people had just moved from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Aylan won the lottery, and so they were able to come as a family. She had one little boy, Manasseh, who was 2 years old. And at the end of the Mass on Thanksgiving Day, our priest, Father Jerry, said, I have a couple here from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they only speak French in addition to their local dialects. So if anyone here speaks French, please come up and introduce yourself. So I and a couple of other people went up to them after Mass and introduced ourselves, and we became friends. So I would encourage anyone, if you see someone, I mean, I would help anyone that I could, but especially immigrants. I think they have a difficult row to hoe when they first get here. The language is difficult, the culture is different, and you will enrich your life by getting to know them. And I'm very happy that we were able to do that.